how do you know what's safe and what isn't? So, how do you know what's safe and what isn't? So, let me give some context to this topic. Most times, this comes up for ideas and treatments that are not FDA approved. So I'm going to make a really big, broad blanket statement for just a second, especially for child psychiatry. A lot of the stuff that we say and do, a lot of the medicines that we use are not specifically FDA approved. Instead, there's an avenue for physicians called off-label use, meaning if you know how the medicine works and know what it's theoretically supposed to be doing, and you make sure that that person gets gets all the information that they need. So you make sure that the person asks all the questions about the risks and the benefits and side effects and and you do all of your education, and we call that informed consent. Then if that person says, yes, I'm willing to take this medicine, then you can use those medicines for off-label use. All right. Well, there's a lot of creativity that happens both in child psychiatry and adult psychiatry. Quite a few of the medications in adult psychiatry, they have specific indications: schizophrenia, bipolar, that sort of thing. But again, we have lots of leeway to use things off-label. And so when the question comes up, how do you know what's safe and what isn't? We as psychiatrists have to filter all of that through our training. And so, for example, there's something called the Matthews Protocol. So the Matthews Protocol is an idea that is very new because it treats a diagnosis that is also new, DMDD, I always get it. Why do I bother? Disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. All right, so DMDD. And so because the diagnosis is so new, there's no set protocols. And so this particular person came up with a protocol. And it uses some anticonvulsants, so anti-seizure medicines for some part of it. It uses stimulants for some part of it. It uses blood pressure medicines for another part of it. On its face, when you look at each of those individual medicines, you're like, wait a minute. So this is an anti-seizure medicine, but this kid doesn't have seizures. So, is this safe? Well, if you look at the book and you use the doses for seizure medicines in a different protocol, you can do that as long as you do your informed consent and you make sure that everybody is aware of what you're doing and what the goals are. And so it's safe because you're using FDA approved doses in that particular situation. And most of your pharmacopoeias will have adult dosing and kid dosing. And so it'll tell you how many, how much is too much, how much is too little, where's the general effective level. And so lots and lots and lots of nuance to all of this stuff. And so how do you know what's safe and what isn't? Well, one of the other things that comes, so that protocol, it was physician created. And so essentially you have a doctor. So a doctor is just basically a medical scientist. They do some scientific stuff. They use the scientific theory. They create a hypothesis, and then they try to prove or disprove the hypothesis, right? And then the medical part is you just get to interact with people. Because if you were just a non-medical scientist, you'd be doing bench research and doing your hypotheses. And so that's what a doctor does. And so because of that, they have some kind of rules and ethics that they have to go by. And so even with something like a protocol that maybe not is completely accepted or completely endorsed by everybody, that doctor has a license and and stuff that means that he or she is kind of filtering and trying to do their best to keep true to science and what science says. Unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of other stuff on the internet that is not that. And so you'll start to see, there's an old one a long time ago when autism was, we were trying to find better treatments for autism. There's a movement for chelation therapy, CHELATION, chelation, which is a fancy way of saying you can, there's a way that you can pull different minerals and different things out of your body, like mercury and other things. And y'all, number one, you're not supposed to eat mercury, so don't do that. But, does your body contain trace amounts at some super, super, super low level? Sure, I'm sure it does somewhere. But do you need to pull it out of your body? Absolutely not. Don't do that. And so, but there were people who were doing that. They were like, oh, well, let's see if that helps with improving autism and autism symptoms. And that, it was actually hurting people. And so, sometimes that was, sometimes those things are pushed by doctors. So, there was a doctor responsible, I think he was a doctor who was responsible for the whole vaccines cause autism thing, which we know is not true. And he got, he lost his license and was roundly kicked out of the whole, institution of medicine and science, which is good. But then other people just kind of make things up, and they're like, oh, well, try this thing or try that thing. And you have to be super, super careful with those things. So in general, the rule is if you hear it from a doctor, most doctors, because of how they're trained and the ethics that we have to stick to, most times you're going to be, you're safe as long as you ask all of your informed consent questions and that sort of thing. If you're hearing it from off the street or off the internet and there's no doctor attached to that thought or to that theory or to that protocol or to that idea, be super, super cautious. Those are also things you can take to your doctor so that you can say, hey, is this true? And your doctor can sit there and she'll say, no, that doesn't, the science behind it is this, that doesn't mesh with the science or whatever, right? So just be very, very thoughtful about what you read. So is it safe? Kind of check your sources, check your resources, and then go from there. Now, this again, it goes back to the body of science. So rumor has it that the body of information within the medical science world, like the medical education world, I think the body itself doubles every 100 days or 70 days or something like that. And so there's so much data and there's so many trials and so many papers and just so much stuff going on all the time. Sometimes you don't know what is real and what isn't. You don't know what is applicable or what isn't. You don't, certain guidelines will come out and say, yes, go eat eggs. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to have an omelet. This could be great. And then you'll see tomorrow, no, eggs are evil and don't eat them, boo. And so you don't eat an omelet. And then, the next day you go, yeah, no, this is good, right? And it goes back and forth. It goes, same thing with wine, oh, well, wine is bad, but it's good in moderation, but it's only red wine and not white wine. I mean, there's always something. So how do you know if it's safe or not? Well, trust your gut also, and use your instincts. Anything in excess is probably bad. Moderation is generally good. Try to find a balance, sometimes it's not all or nothing. Some things are all or nothing, like don't do cocaine. That's a bad idea and it won't ever be helpful to you ever, right? But if you say, hey, I want to do, is exercise, should I do weightlifting? Well, it depends on your body and your resources, and you need to talk to your doctor and make sure that you're doing it safely. So yeah, so is it safe? Is it not? It is. This is a area, y'all. It will change for your whole entire life. As soon as you think you know it, it'll change. And so I want you to embrace the change, lean into it, do the best you can where you are with the resources that you have. And if it turns out it's wrong, don't beat yourself up over it. Try to pivot if you can, or change it if you can. And if you can't change, go see a therapist, because that's what therapists are really good at, is helping you find those hiccups in your life. And just know that especially your psychiatrists are working very diligently as mental health experts to keep you safe.